You're listening to Rookie Pirate Radio, the official anime and manga podcast for InBetweenDrafts.com. I'm John Negroni.
And I'm Travis Hymas.
And today we're doing a manga recap of One Piece chapter 1083, titled The Truth of That Day. Travis, I think you and I should only commit to telling the truth of this manga. Sound good?
Except when we're guessing.
Well, no, that's almost all we do. As usual, we will be discussing spoilers for the One Piece manga up until this chapter. So, if you have not yet read chapter 1083, be sure to do so now for free. Hey, Ryan for once. You can do that on the Viz website. We always link to the latest chapters in the episode description. It's going to be available for up to 3 weeks after the official release, so you have some time. Or if you want to read it whenever you want, you can become a member of Shonen Jump like us, which we do recommend. It's worth it. And of course, we want to hear from you, the listener. If you would like to add your own thoughts to the ongoing One Piece discussion, like theory, a speculation, maybe even a correction of something we said, you have two methods. One of the easy ones, you just email us. Our email address, it's out there. We're not hiding anything. rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. I'll say it again. rookiepirateradio@gmail.com. I mean, pirate radio having an email, a little weird, but we do it. Or this is even better. This is the best way to talk to us. This is what most people do. You can go to our Discord server and join it. We do have a Discord, and we actually have all kinds of great channels. One of them is dedicated just to One Piece spoilers and discussion as the chapters come out. Highly recommend you hang out with us there. We do have other things: music, films, TV, books, comics, video games, you name it. And I always have to mention, of course, our Pizza Wars channel. If you're curious about that, you can check out the Discord, and you can find all that info, links, and everything in the show notes. And with that, Travis, it's time to talk about the latest One Piece chapter. And I'm going to go through the main beats, but as usual, I do want to get your gut check. Is this a thumbs up chapter for you? Thumbs kind of sideways, thumbs down? Where are we at?
So first off, before we get into it, speaking of corrections, I got to take an L because I did not expect this chapter to be what it is at all.
I was going to wait on that. And I was going to take a little bit of mercy. I wasn't going to be a celestial dragon to you.
I was taken aback. I was shocked and surprised. And so obviously a thumbs up chapter for me because, my expectations have once again been subverted.
There was a YouTuber, Joy Boy Theories, and he kind of said the same thing. But his thing was like, he was like you. I did not expect more Reverie this week. He expected it like you did, that we would move on to Egghead or something else. But what he said I thought was key, where he was like, I love being surprised like that. I love that, Oda still finds ways to do that. If you didn't listen to last week's recap, basically, I was saying that I was pretty sure we were going to go into the Reverie after that chapter. I just felt like my argument was usually, I mean, not every time, but I would say 9 times out of 10, when Oda ends a chapter like 1082 like that, and he doesn't really give us a lot of new information, that's a sign to me that we are going to get more right after. He tends to off-screen after he gives us something. So like off-screening the Law and Blackbeard fight, he didn't just end it with nothing new. He sort of ended it with like, revelations about what Law can do and like a little bit of morsel of like what that fight would be like. And it just felt like with the Sabo Dragon Ivankov thing, we didn't really learn anything. So I was like, I just feel like he wouldn't end it there because it would be too much of a tease, especially since it's been 5 years since the Reverie happened, and we've still been kind of waiting on this. It felt like it would have been too mean.
To be honest, it feels like the Reverie has never stopped happening and hasn't happened at the same time.
Yeah.
So
we just keep catching glimpses of the fallout, every once in a while. And here we are, though. We are getting a more detailed accounting of that day, the truth of that day. So I'll go through the main beats. Here we go. So the chapter begins. We do have a cover story with Doflamingo. I did kind of get my wish because I mentioned how I wanted Doflamingo to join the Warlords, and maybe we'll talk about that because that did make me think of something. But we just get like a reader request, not a cover story. And then, so into the chapter. Sabo We see him recounting the story of what happened on the day of the Reverie with Dragon and Ivankov, sort of going over the effects of what happened, like the after effects. So there's a food shortage. There have been some successful rebellions, like on Logia and so on. But then Sabo does get into the flashback. So we see Morley, we see Lindbergh and Karasu, 3 of the 4 captains, attacking the Holy Land, with Morley is up against Green Bull, Karasu is up against Fujitora, but it's established that the admirals can't really use their full power without hurting the celestial dragons, who are obviously running and trying to avoid all the chaos. And they should be running, I should say. We also see some of the other members of CP0, including more former CP9 members. I think we've seen all of them at this point now, who are not yet confirmed. We had seen Blueno, we had seen Khalifa, but now we're seeing the other 3. I forget their names. The ones that I don't think we've seen since Eni's Lobby. And then you could correct me on that if we did see one of them, maybe. We then cut to Sabo infiltrating Pangea Castle. He finds Kuma, and we even catch a glimpse of Bonney running to try to find Kuma as well. Vivi is confronting Lucci in this chapter about Shirahoshi and him not defending her, and the fact that Shirahoshi is still in danger of being captured by Saint Charlos, which we knew. And then the chapter ends with King Cobra telling Shaka and Pell to wait while he talks to the 5 elders about something he says won't take long. And so that I think this chapter recap will probably take long because there's plenty to get into here. I didn't even mention the Holy Knights and what's going on there. In fact,
I want to start at the beginning there with the actual conversation between Eva and Dragon and Sabo, because for one, and we don't talk too much about the anime too often, but I'm very excited to see these few panels of the 3 animated, because it's the first time in a little while that Ivankov has been allowed to have more than a couple of lines, and I have missed their energy so much. And I cannot wait for the anime to animate it, because it has always done an exquisite job with Ivankov. And just, we're back hee-hawing, and we're going to starve him out. Hee-haw! Like, I can't even do it right, but it is so, it's one of my favorite little character beats. And there's a lot going on in this little conversation. Just smack dab of content right here, just in the beginning.
I imagine some of the folks listening don't know that I live in San Francisco, or the San Francisco area. But San Francisco is like where I go to like my movie screenings, and I'm there, I would say like 3-4 times a week. But it's not like where I am every day. But one of my favorite places in San Francisco is the Castro. Have you ever heard of this neighborhood, Travis?
I have not.
The Castro is like, one of the like, and I mean this like with my heart, because the Castro is probably my favorite area in the Bay Area, and it is the gayest neighborhood. It has like just wall-to-wall pride. There's all kinds of people, like there's drag there. This is like where a lot of the pride festivals happen. The Castro Theater, there's like gay bars everywhere. It's paradise. Like, I love this area. The people there are just like amazing. It's fun. There's always something going on. And I was just there the other day watching Joyride, the new movie from Adele Lim, the writer of Crazy Rich Asians. And I was just like, I love this area. Like, I went into a couple of places, and like that whole energy that Ivankov kind of brings, that like just larger than life, sort of, I don't even know how to describe it. Like, it's like it's not just flamboyancy. It's just sort of like a passion for everything is like one of my favorite things about that. So it was just fun reading this chapter. I think it was like the same day I was there, and I was like, Oda has his finger on the pulse. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously you can see where the inspiration for all this comes from. And Oda has always been ahead of the game when it comes to depicting characters like this. I think he's grown a lot in his depiction of these characters. But Ivankov is still the gold standard for sure. Love him to death. But really, we should talk more about their plan, and also the kind of big revelation Dragon just kind of drops in our lap here.
Yeah, we finally, we heard about the Holy Knights for the first time think last year, it was like it was chapters like in the 1050s, I want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And, all of a sudden we were sort of teased about like, oh, there's a force it's not the admirals, it's not the Gorosei, it's some other sort of like Holy Land force, the Holy Knights. And yeah, Dragon talks about that. The internet has been ablaze in heated discussion about one of the silhouettes. And I think rightfully so. It's a silhouette that looks very much like Shanks to a point. Sword looks kind of different, and it is very silhouetted. And all kinds of theories out there. People are like, Shanks has a clone, Shanks has a brother. And one of the more convincing things I've heard, and that I was kind of wondering too, is, is this the version of Shanks, like somebody who looks a lot like Shanks, who had an audience with the Gorosei back in the Reverie? When we saw like the big straw hat, when he says that, I want to talk about a certain pirate. I think it's one of those things where it could also just be a silhouette. You know what I mean?
I love that idea, only because like it did force me to go back and look at that page of Shanks meeting with the Gorosei, which is a panel that I have been obsessed with. Even back when Gear 5th was about to arrive, and they were talking about the truth of the Gum fruit and everything, and feeling like it's very weird that Shanks is involved in this way, and it's kind of been this little piece of information that I've been trying to tie together in the way that I have, not really thinking that Shanks is specifically evil, but more that Shanks has more of an agenda than we had thought. And it was only because of the talk of these silhouettes that I realized, oh, Oda did draw the other side of Shanks's face in that panel, which normally wouldn't be anything to arouse suspicion, but now it does. And because if he had drawn the opposite profile for any reason whatsoever, we would have immediately clocked it as Shanks. And that means it was a choice. That doesn't necessarily mean it was a choice for this, but more and more, I'm like, why this panel? Why this way? Just wild. When it comes to silhouettes, though, of course, and it's funny that this happened right after I had read kind of a translated interview with Oda where he talks about silhouettes being a prime motivator for the story getting longer, because he comes up with these very cool silhouettes and wants to integrate them into the story. So he has to invent story for them. And so now we have a new pile of silhouettes almost that could have been cooking in the background for a while, and they're very vague silhouettes compared to others that we've gotten. Obviously I don't think it's Shanks. That would be bizarre given how we know so much about his history, but a relative is not outside the realm of possibility, I think.
Yeah, I mean, we should be clear too, right, that we have gotten some more info. It's trickled in about Shanks's backstory, possibly being a celestial dragon, a member of the Figureland family. He was found by Gold Roger, presumably after the God's Valley incident, similar to how he found Uta, and which I assume is still considered canon. Who knows?
So, and this is where Viz, if you're listening, please translate the little... I don't know why this chapter didn't get translated. They did it for Hero Academia when that movie last came out. Mm-hmm. They need to do it for the chapter that the little bonus manga that came out with Red in Japan, especially now, because we are going to have a lot of misconceptions flying around. But yeah, that chapter does suggest that Shanks was separated potentially from his family in a treasure chest and picked up by the Roger Pirates. Yeah. So if that is in fact canon, and it was written and drawn by Oda, so we're going to go ahead and take it as such, at least in my opinion. Yeah, we should probably get a translation of that.
So the chapter where we do see Shanks confronting the Gorosei, to what you're saying, yeah, we don't see the scar. We don't even see like the edges of the scar, which is kind of suspicious. He seems to have, it's chapter 907, by the way, for anyone who wants to go back to that chapter. It actually is this one is a pretty decent continuation of that chapter, I should say. because it references the Shirihoshi stuff as well, and the CP0 stuff. But yeah, they're in Pangea Castle, and he's not wearing the same clothing. He's kind of wearing a cloak. You can't tell if he does have his arm or not. That's another thing that isn't obvious by this. And then also, panel doesn't call him out as Shanks. They just say, "What do you want?" They don't call him Shanks, right? They don't call him Red Hair Shanks or anything like that. He says, "There's a pirate I need to talk about." And yeah, it's not clear to me. It's like he could be quite easily just be not even a twin brother, but just a brother. He could just look kind of similar. His hair isn't obviously, the same or different, right? So I think that's a pretty strong piece of evidence that there is a holy knight who is sort of Shank-like, I guess. We can put it at that. I don't want to dwell on it too much because it really is just a silhouette. It is a little suspicious that his clothes do look a lot like him. Other people have been kind of speculating, of course, to what you were referencing, that maybe he's evil. My thing about the Holy Knights is I get the sense, because the way the dragon words it, he says if they mobilize the Holy Knights, that's where the fighting will begin. And they've already sort of dispatched Holy Knights everywhere. I just have this feeling that maybe the Holy Knights are sort of sleeper cell folks, kind of in a CP0 sort of way, or CP9 or whatever, where they exist out in the world. And maybe there are a bunch of Holy Knights, even some we've met, who are just secretly Holy Knights. You know what I'm saying? So it could just be revealed oh, this character ended up being a Holy Knight, this character too. And then I think that could be the way in of oh, was Shanks, a Holy Knight all along. And this goes into a theory that I referenced on Discord, that I have a theory that is most likely to send me to jail. And Travis, you would be the one throwing away the key.
Well, I will say that I so far wholeheartedly agree with you, and I feel the same way that these Holy Knights being already out in the world is too compelling to not be the way that those characters enter the story. So hit me with the weird stuff now.
I was trying to piece it together. If Shanks really was working or was with the world government, let's say that it's not some kind of mind control or some sort of oh, he's good, but then, whenever they want, the Gorosei can turn a switch in his brain and make him evil. I don't think it's that, but let's say that he is sort of in league with the world government in some way. What if we've been assuming this whole story, the world government is just plain evil, corrupt, everything like that. The Void Century, they did what they did for selfish reasons. You and I have talked about the Gorosei and Eam, for example, being, possibly immortal because of the OPOP. What was it called again? The OPOP fruit, right?
Yeah.
The Operation Fruit. Mm-hmm. And basically having the immortal surgery or having some other thing that makes them immortal. People have speculated that all the celestial dragons have something like that, to the effect that, they have been around for hundreds of years. And I keep thinking to myself that what if it's a misdirect? What if the reason we just assume they're evil, they do evil things. We've seen them make decisions, the O'Hara incident, what happens with Lucia. But what if they have a really good reason? And what if the thing that they want to happen is the same thing that would happen if, for example, Gold Roger hadn't come too early, in terms of everyone speculated about it's literally called Pangea Castle. The implication being that the world looked completely different before. There wasn't a red line. There wasn't a sea separated by all that stuff. But what if the Gorosei and the Celestial Dragons in particular aren't going to be antagonists in the sense that they're going to want to preserve the status quo? I keep getting this feeling Shanks wants to sort of use the world government, or sort of Eam essentially not being as evil as we think, and them having an extremely good reason for everything that they've been doing, specifically a really good reason for basically allowing the Celestial Dragons to do whatever they want because they need them. And the thing that has me thinking about this is if there's some history to why the royals became Celestial Dragons, and why Cobra, Nefertari, didn't, or his ancestors didn't. And I keep thinking that there's something about like a responsibility or like a sacrifice or like some kind of thing that they know about, like what's going to happen in the end of all of this, that I think has to do with why Cobra dies. I keep wondering, because Sabo apparently is going to be where Cobra is. Cobra's going to be meeting with the Gorosei. And I'm just wondering if, like, we also know that Sabo, cold noodle Sabo, sees that someone is sitting in the throne. And I wonder if that's where everything's going to intersect, with Cobra also, like, seeing Eam, or being in the wrong place at the wrong time, whatever it is, right? And maybe getting revelation, if not in this area, but at some point in the story, that actually the Gorosei are kind of good. I can already hear you squirming in your chair, ripping your shirt, hulking out.
So what you're saying to me then is that Eam is Lelouch v Britannia? Is that what I'm taking away
what,
from
Britannia?
This? Have you seen Code Geass?
No.
Never. Okay. For the listeners who have, you understand that joke. Okay. So I'm going to go with you on this journey, because I do think that these stories are going to intersect, right? The Sabo's in the castle now. We know that he does witness Eam on the throne. That's pretty much a stone cold fact at this point, looking at the last time we saw him and now. We know Cobra's about to go in there.
Well, not the throne room, right?
Not the throne room, but like we know that these stories are kind of in a headlong intersect, right?
That's the thing that I don't get, is like, how do they get to the throne room? Like, what brings them there? That's the thing that's been driving me bananas, because the way it is now, it's like, I don't get it.
If I had to guess, and like I said, this is it's about as good as we get. Kuma is the thing, because that's the wild card, right? Is Sharlos has Kuma, he's going to do a thing. It's going to involve Shirahoshi. We know Vivi is looking for Garp because she doesn't trust Rob Lucci to protect them. She's expecting something to happen to Shirahoshi as well. We still don't know the full extent to what Kuma's deal is. And we know Jewelry Bonney is making an absolute mad dash for the same person. So I think that is where, for lack of a better term, all hell breaks loose. It's already broken loose, but within the context, like all of this is happening. By the way, all of the stuff outside is happening with the admirals and the other captains and whatnot, and slaves are running free, and it's absolute chaos. And Fujitora is debating just dropping rocks on all of it, and they're still just doing business. The Gorosei are still just vibing in their one room, and they're bringing in Cobra, and they're just continuing business as usual. That's either really, really cocky or something else, right? Like, they want to use this situation to their advantage. And again, we know how Cobra ends up at the end of this, so there's something sketch about everything happening right now. Especially since we then have this picture where not only were Sabo, we knew Sabo was accused of doing it, but this, I think, is the first time we have seen a stone cold image of the two men in the same room. And that's some pretty incriminating evidence.
Well, I have two things to that. One of them is the ending part of my theory, which is probably the most infuriating part, or most exciting, depending on who you are. But I did forget to mention that one of the things that did get me thinking that there is some sort of like switch in the brain of these Holy Knights, who might not even know that they're Holy Knights, and that could include Shanks. Like, what I'm saying is, what if, like, the character who looks like Shanks might not be a Holy Knight, just might be a member of his family and is talking about Shanks, and maybe tells them about something that, like, they could at any moment turn Shanks into a Holy Knight, in the same way that Kuma gets summoned to marry Joa. So that's part of my idea as well. That, like, basically Shanks doesn't even know that that's a thing that's happening with him. I would like that direction to go, to be where we go. Other thing, though, is I just have this feeling like, what if the revolutionaries, what if Dragon, Ivankov, and all them, what if they become combatants to the Straw Hats and become like basically what would make this interesting is that for the Straw Hats to find the One Piece could be something that conflicts with the goals of the revolutionaries and would actually, like, the subversion, the twist would be that it's something that the world government does want, but only wants it to happen the right way. So, like, they kept the Celestial Dragons alive this long. They've been making sure pirates don't get too big for their britches, awaiting somebody to actually find the One Piece for a reason that does align with their goals. And the big subversion would be the enemy to the Straw Hats would be like Sabo versus Luffy. Like something like that I think could be really, really cool. Even if it was like a momentary thing. And again, you're kind of hulking out because I would dare pit Ivankov versus Sanji, mentor versus master. It's blasphemous, I know.
I mean that wouldn't even be the first one of those that's lined up. Because we're inevitably expecting a Hawkeye and Zoro clash, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. The revolutionaries are an interesting thing with One Piece because I do genuinely believe that Oda doesn't want us to view them as enemies. It's notable, I think, and we didn't really talk about this yet, but I'm going to slide this in as a part of this discussion. The revolutionaries' plan is very interesting because it's far more tactical than you normally see in One Piece, even from like the Navy.
Yeah, it's guerrilla warfare.
It's very guerrilla warfare, and it's targeting supplies. It's targeting people. Instead of targeting people, I should say, and trying to starve them out. They're still expecting a clash, and they're based on the talk of the Holy Knights, there's going to be a clash. But there does seem to be a lot of forethought in trying to avoid the very common, and I'm just going to call it the Falcon and Winter Soldier dilemma of trying to explain why someone would be against an established order while not villainizing them. And I think now that we are seeing the revolutionaries properly in action, Oda is taking very careful steps to keep it that way. But at the same time, because this is One Piece, and as you noted, it's probably more than likely that our main villains, our final antagonists, are not just going to be evil. Because, frankly, we've already done that a couple of times now. And even those characters have a source of reason for their for the things that make them evil, right? Even Doflamingo has a backstory that kind of, doesn't make you feel for him, but at least you understand how he ended up that way.
Kaido too,
exactly. Kaido, of course. Doflamingo's a real, piece of work. But we've had those, right? And we have the Celestial Dragons. They are kind of just so morally devoid of any kind of sympathy towards their fellow man because they don't think that they're fellow men. And I gotta be honest, I'm very curious to see how this plays out. Luffy, for example, doesn't think that Sabo has the ability to do what he's been accused of. We've seen him react very viscerally to that and saying, no, this is a misunderstanding. He wouldn't do that. And Sabo doesn't really, say he did it. They don't even think, the revolutionaries were taken aback too. Dragon even tries to excuse the whole thing. And Sabo's kind of like, you know what? I kind of don't care. Mm-hmm. Like, let him think I did it. That's fine. And I think that's a very interesting wrinkle in all of this because again, it doesn't make Sabo evil. It doesn't even make him what I would call like morally gray, but it makes it more interesting because the man is very, very motivated to hit his goals. And that's the most powerful character in a One Piece story. A part of the One Piece story is somebody who is just grasping at those dreams and fighting for them. Yeah.
But that's the thing that makes me think Oda is setting up a major revelation about the Celestial Dragons actually having a function that will surprise us because they're so over the top evil. They're so it just makes me think that there has to be a reason that Oda is choosing to misdirect us like that and to make them seem black and white because there's a function that they have to perform that is going to, I think, take us off guard. I don't know exactly what it is, but it's got to be something.
And I mean, it doesn't even have to be like Charlos, right? Like they can still be almost comically evil, right? And still give us all the stuff, because we still don't know. Like we talked about this when Saint J Garcia got off of his chair, and that was revealed to us. We don't know much about these guys. We don't even know most of their names still. We guess what their names are now, but we don't know. There's so much information here. And, now that we know for sure that we're going to be sitting in this flashback for at least another chapter, it does feel like something is coming. I don't know if it's going to be like something that puts Luffy on their side or in that direction, but at the very least, it was something that Roger was willing to do. Right. So that's fair.
There's a reason I think Roger doesn't become a revolutionary after these events. I know that technically the dragon didn't start the revolutionary thing until, I guess, after, huh? So I guess that's not a fair.
It's worth keeping in mind too that there's ideology in play here, right? Like Dragon's not a pirate. Those are two different things, and Oda has given great thought to these ideologies. So the potential for them clashing is possible. I don't know if it's going to be the way that you think, and I question if Oda even wants to frame the revolutionaries as antagonists for honestly, because I think his own political vibes are quite a bit sympathetic to them.
I think he's more sympathetic to the idea of pirates and freedom. Rather than,
I agree.
I think, and look, I get it, because I'm literally working on a story that has revolutionaries and pirates, and I've sort of run into this as well, where I hate stories that just like go out of their way to villainize revolutions in order to both sides things, to be like, the revolutionaries are just as bad. And it's like, we've gotten that story so many times. Like, I hate it. It's like one thing I hate in BioShock Infinite, for example. But I do think there is a nuance to that kind of story that can certainly be told well. And so I do trust Oda in that respect, because I agree with you that I think he does consider, what they're doing to be the right thing in their eyes and to be justified and everything. But I'm just seeing these little breadcrumbs of like, the ignoring, an innocent person getting assassinated and him being blamed for it, kind of showing us that there is something that there's something to Sabo's growth that I think needs to happen here. Because that callousness is kind of alarming to me. I did want to circle back though to the Tenryubito, and just in general, something that I think we might have mentioned it, but I want to piece together. I want people listening to remember. Don't forget, we know that there was the Iron Giant thing on Vegapunk's island, Egghead, and he was hundreds of years ago was summoned to Marijoa and attacked it for a reason we don't know, and didn't hurt anyone apparently. And we did learn earlier in Egghead, back when it was on Egghead Island, we learned that the technology of the people who lived back then was very, very advanced. And so I know for years people have speculated that maybe the celestial dragons, like, why do they wear spacesuits, right? Why does it seem like they don't want to breathe the air around people? People being like, are they aliens? Are they actually like, they think they're gods from the moon, whatever it is? All of those theories have run rampant. And so I just want to kind of establish that again, in case we didn't mention it before, that I think it's really telling that technology was advanced, if these celestial dragons are basically living relics of 800 years ago, of like the civilization beforehand, that they would still dress that way, and that this is how people dressed back then. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if during the Void Century, the way the celestial dragons look, like their clothing, is exactly what we'll see with those characters. That's my speculation. I think it would make perfect sense.
I think that does make sense, actually. I hadn't really considered that. I've kind of thought of the Celestial Dragons as like the British monarchy, not like a literal one-to-one, but in that close, same
right?
Well,
they're literally called saints. Yeah.
Just in the I mean, look at Charlos. I think Charlos is intentionally our punching bag for these characters.
Not Henry VIII, but like there's a couple of kings in the monarchy like that.
Yeah, there's a little bit, and I'm trying to think of a politically correct way to put this. But let's just say if he took an Ancestry.com test, it would probably come back pretty quick, with not many results.
I like Hunger Games kind of got that across, right, with the people in the Capitol and like their sort of kind of grotesque appearances at times. I don't think the movies showed that correctly, but the books did.
Just gaudy fashion and a take on the word elegance, right?
Right. The book still made them kind of look like supermodels, or the movies did, to be fair. But clearly, I think that those books were trying to model after the same thing you're talking about.
Yeah.
I do want to mention a big revelation. We didn't get to Karasu's thing. Karasu has the sit.
Have we even gone into the flashback yet? I think we're still just talking about Sabo in general.
Yeah. We barely.
We should move on. We should move on though, because Karasu is very cool.
Yeah, Karasu comes in for the win, for the save, the big save, because the celestial dragons are about to kill like a pirate, but they were basically like using as like a mutt. It was pretty awful. And he tries to shoot the pirate, but then Karasu comes in and saves him. And Karasu just like straight up cool, a murder of crows kind of character. And yeah, it looks like he looks like a Logia to me, because when they're shooting him, he kind of does that same thing where like the bullets kind of go through him. But he's able to turn parts of his body into living creatures. It does remind me of the clay guy, Prince Groose from Sword. And we kind of were speculating that maybe he's a paramecia because of his abilities. But at this point, I'm kind of thinking, like, I know people have speculated before that if you can awaken your Logia, then you can like turn like your Logia stuff into like a living creature. So we've seen that, right? With Akainu was kind of able to do that with like one of his attacks was like look kind of like a dragon, I want to say. I forget which chapter, that was a while back, but I think in Marineford we saw. I just think there's some potential there, because with Logias we haven't really seen them really like to their full effect yet, have we?
Not really. I'm going to say this and get corrected for sure. But I don't think we've had like a defined awakening moment for Logia. There's still the debate, was Kaido awakened or not too. So I'm going to say you're right on that. And I don't think we've seen like what the full extent of that could be. I do agree 100% that Suit for probably a Logia, just based on kind of how it functions. So it very well could be an awakened fruit.
I like the idea of it. With Kaido, I think people's idea with that was like the clouds, and what he was able to do holding up the island and everything was him being awakened. But I mean, who knows, honestly.
Yeah, at this point, I don't think it's even worth, outside of like fun fan debates, it's probably not worth dwelling on too much. But
the anime hasn't revealed much of that either. It just shows Momo kind of being like, I can't really compete. And then he just grabs Kaido's clouds and like pulls the island. Right.
And so it could be, I don't know. But by that same token, I don't think we've seen a Logia really done that way, even to that scale, much less to a full awakening.
Yeah, everything else, like we see, by the way, I mean, I love his attack. Soul Lotus was like a cool attack, like the puns of like Obella suits. It was nice seeing Lindbergh. Lindbergh is like one of my favorite, like, Karasu looks cool, but Lindbergh to me is just such a fun, like, saboteur character. I love the way he just like darts around the map in this. And some people were kind of mentioning, because we see Morley going up against Green Bull, which is so fun. Morley's sort of like, why are you trying to violate my privacy, you perv?
I love that. I love that kind of like taunting. It's so different from a normal fight.
Mm-hmm. Morley really comes out on top in this, and I definitely like it. You can see the frustration on Green Bull's face because he can't go all out, and then you have the Celestial Dragons basically being like, "Oh, we're gonna like kill you after this because you didn't do a good enough job." And it's just like, it's so messed up, and you can see him just be like, no wonder he wanted to go to Wano and had something to prove and just wanted to go all out, Also, Fujitora just being like, I'm going to call in a meteor. Because you could see, like, Fujitora just does not care about collateral damage by comparison. Like, he's just, of course he doesn't. To me, I think there's still so much going on with that character in terms of his allegiances.
Yeah, I mean, he was drafted, so it's, he's not a joiner. He's not a believer like Green Bull. We know that for sure. But we also, when it comes to Fujitora, we know that he has complicated feelings about the way anything is done right now. He personally advocated for the dissolution of the Seven Warlords. But that doesn't, people have kind of ascribed him as kind of an ally morally. And it's even possible that that's what's happening here, that like he's just decided if he makes things complicated by trying to use his powers in the most extreme way, that gives the revolutionaries an edge. I don't know if that's it, because the difference between Fujitora on Dressrosa and Fujitora here is Fujitora had a direct interaction with Luffy, whereas here he's just here doing his job as far as we know. And
I just want to know more about him.
Exactly, because we have that tantalizing realization that he self-inflicted his own disability. He blinded himself.
Yeah.
And because he saw something that caused him to want to do that. And like, y'all, in this very chapter, we have a celestial dragon just about to kill a guy because he wasn't pulling his cart fast enough. Like, there's some perverse crap happening right now. So what did Fujitora see? I just want to know. So him just kind of complicating things, whether intentionally or not, is very, very funny. Because I don't think he has any attachment to the Celestial Dragon. It's probably the opposite, even if it's not necessarily the same as like the Revolutionaries.
Yeah. There has to be something that sells him on, doing what he's doing. His sense of justice, something involving his backstory, like some kind of like, he just seems like a veteran of sorts. And, I think that, for example, if he was at God Valley, like maybe he was a young buck during that incident or one of the surrounding incidents, or maybe he went up against the Rocks pirates and he saw what the Celestial Dragons did at God Valley. Something that like, I wouldn't be surprised if he was one of the characters and that's what caused him to sort of like be on the outs and be a hermit or whatever it was for all that time until he was called back into service. Like that's the kind of thing that I think would make sense, but who knows? Maybe it's something totally removed from anything we've seen in the story. I'm excited to see it. Would you see? Okay.
You said something that like lit a spark under me just now. I hadn't even considered that Fujitora would be anywhere near God Valley.
I mean, it couldn't have just been Garp and Roger, right?
We know they were drafted, so I had just kind of assumed, they weren't in the Marines before. But like, how did they get drafted? Were they former Marines? Were they Sword, and that's how they got drafted? I had never considered that.
With Greenville, I don't know if he was a former Marine. My idea with Fujitora is like he might not have even been a former Marine. He could have been like part of like the nobles on God Valley.
He could have been a Rocks pirate.
I don't know about
at that point.
But, like if he was on that island and was like one of the, like a Pell kind of character, like working for the royals and like had a good relationship with them, or like, maybe there were some good celestial dragons in God Valley. Who knows? But
I could never considered it. I never considered that. Yeah.
I mean,
he's old enough to be at various points of the story.
Yeah.
That I
take your pick.
But yeah, like God Valley had not even occurred to me. That's
I remember during Dressrosa, I was wondering, because at that point we knew Wano was going to be the Japan thing, a Japan parallel. And I was like, I wonder if he's a samurai. And, we'll get some kind of like, he's from Wano. But I think that it's pretty much, I think that's pretty much laid to rest. I think we've gotten all the Wano reveals we're going to get in terms of who's connected to that island, at least for the time being. CP0, I don't even remember the other names of like, there's like the three others, right? We see Blue Ono and Khalifa, but it's been so long. I don't remember them. I remember we have the guy with the zipper mouth, and I'm going to look him up because I feel bad that I forgot. But the zipper guy, he's the only one who has like a big design change, and it's not a big design change. He just has glasses now. But the other guy, they all look kind of the same as before.
He was attributed to do it. I think it was Grand Line Review. Grand Line Review kind of attributed his new glasses and stuff to Satoru Gojo. But clearly, clearly these guys are doing a bunch of Nanami cosplay from Jujutsu Kaisen. Yeah, that's what we're getting here.
So Zippermouth is Fukuro. The guy who kind of he looks like a Japanese like painting guy. He has like his hand up. That's Kumadori. And the guy who kind of looks like what's his name, Lieutenant Zhao or whatever from Dragon Ball. That's Jabra.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Lieutenant Zhao's. Or it was something. He's like the in Dragon Ball. He was like that Chinese kind of character who like throws the log and jumps on it.
Yep.
And then comes back in the story for a filler episode during the Cell Saga.
Don't they all?
Yeah. Hey, look, I've maintained that Garlic Jr., the Return of Garlic Jr., one of the best filler arcs in Dragon Ball.
Dragon Ball at least has good. Dragon Ball at least has good filler arcs.
Yeah, especially early on. But yeah, CP0. I don't love that they all went from CP9 to CP0. I kind of liked that it was just a couple of them, and that was a sense that like the others weren't strong enough. But oh well, I guess CP0 is kind of big.
I'm gonna take it as the only solidarity that they have is with each other, kind of situation. Again, going back to that cover story, I think that cover story is still the most we know about these characters, how they are, separated from their, jobs, basically. And they did it together. They endured and found a life together, and then they got offered this job. And it would make sense that, Lucci, even if he doesn't have the same kind of attachment as other characters, it would make sense that Lucci would reward the loyalty of his comrades by taking them along. Because he trusts them.
I need to revisit that cover story because I wasn't reading week to week back then. So I kind of binged it, and I haven't really given it too much thought since. I've just seen people reference them in, YouTube videos and stuff. But yeah, there's a lot there that I guess some missing pieces for me. I saw some new whispers, or like the old whispers again, of people kind of talking about, because they've been in the anime more lately. Guernica, and I don't even know if the other guy had like a name. The one who attacked or is trying to, he gets in the way of Luffy and Kaido. If he does have a name, I'll look it up. But they've been showing more of those guys, and like some of the old theories that I remember back when we were reading Wano week to week. People have been like, "Oh, were they two of the kids that Big Mom almost ate?" there's been some of that going on. Oh no, Guernica was the main guy. Maha was the one who like holds up the mask.
Yeah,
I bring that up just because like the ones with the mask are supposed to be the most powerful. But it just throws me off a bit because Rob Lucci doesn't have a mask, and he's pretty strong, right? So is Guernica stronger than him?
Rob Lucci had a mask, right?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, he had a mask. Oh, okay. It's just I think once he was properly confirmed back in the story, I think Oda just stopped drawing it.
Yeah.
Because, why make the that's not true. Oda would make the extra work for himself, but there's just, it doesn't serve anything, so it's probably easier to just not do it. That doesn't mean the others have masks, but we do know for sure Rob Lucci and Kaku had masks, because they had them on the boat to Egghead too.
Fair enough.
I think they lost them. You know what it is? It's probably symbolism. The whole mask thing probably was set up just specifically for Rob Lucci and Kaku to lose their masks as soon as the Straw Hats got back involved and like drop the veneer. Now that I'm thinking about it and like which side they're on now, that's probably it.
So then that's it. That's all I had for the CP0 stuff. And then we have Cobra. Yeah. So Cobra going to meet the 5 elders. What do you think Cobra and the 5 elders are going to talk about?
The poneglyphs, right?
What?
The poneglyphs, right?
No.
Not specifically, but that's where I want to start thinking, because there was his encounter with Nico Robin back when she was Miss All Sunday. And that whole experience is probably the motivation he has had for a lot of what he has done since. Not just advocating for the abolishment of the warlords, but also his own interest in the entire thing.
We should point out Reverie happens every 4 years. So correct. To your point, yeah, he hasn't had this audience since the events of Alabasta. Mm-hmm. I think it's confirmed at this point. I think Oda said that, or no, Sanji says that it's been 3 years since the Baratier arc at this point in the story. Yeah, that's that. I believe that's right. And I do, yeah. So and this isn't to say again, but he knows they were looking for a weapon.
He knows that Nico Robin had zero intention of giving that weapon to Crocodile. And he knows that because he knows she lied. So I guess the question is, how much does he know in terms of what was already on the poneglyph? But I think that's where we're going back.
I don't think he's going to ask about it because I think he already knows. I think he either knows already and has found out about it, and I think he has something else he wants to bring up with them that speaks to the larger point around the poneglyphs. There's so much Celestial Dragon stuff in this. I really, really hope it has something to do with the Celestial Dragons and the why the Nefertaris didn't become Celestial Dragons. Like something. I just want a piece from the Void Century.
There has to be something that happens that requires Eam to be involved, right?
Yes, I want Cobra and Eam to have a meeting because what will happen? Will Cobra recognize Eam? Will Cobra know that Eam even exists? Will he be like, who is this? I saw some people being like, maybe Eam looks a lot different than what the manga and the anime have shown so far, because there was just, and this is a stretch, but people have been saying like, oh, Absalom has a shadow in Thriller Bark that kind of looks like Eam. So maybe we've just been seeing a silhouetted shadow of this character, and it could have a totally different design than we expect.
I mean, sure, Oda could easily work his way out of that. He's done it before. Our understanding of Vegapunk radically changed between the first like silhouette / slight shape we got of him and the real deal, and then it changed again when we met the real Vegapunk. So sure, there's plenty of different ways to take this, but like something has to have inspired him to put. I guess let's put it this way. I think he's not expecting to leave that room. I think this is a Whitebeard moment where a character, he has an illness. We already know, we know how this story ends already, even. So I feel this is his Chad moment, right? This is where he goes out, on his own terms, a hero Luke, a Whitebeard. Oda loves those, especially with older characters.
I would say it's similar to Whitebeard in the sense that he's not necessarily wanting to, I think like Whitebeard, he's saying that what he's about to do is very risky.
Yeah,
I think that he's still hoping he gets out of it, because whatever he's going to get out of this interaction, I think he wants to take back with him, because otherwise, why would he do it? Just so he would know for his own sake? Doesn't really make sense, but I think that's why he sends Shock and Pell away, and he's kind of contradicting himself. He's
I think
this won't take long, but I think he's using them as like, watch over Vivi in case things go to hell.
I think he knows at the very least that what he's doing is an act of defiance, right? There is a decent chance that whatever happens, at the very least, it's going to lead to Vivi getting into trouble, which is a guarantee. Let's face it.
Do we know if Shaka and Pell are still alive?
No. Pell is the luckiest character in all of One Piece.
Pell had color of arms back,
but we did not. We did not see them with Vivi. We
don't see their faces in this, which is a foreboding.
That just might be paneling. I'm not going to read too much into it.
Okay, fair enough.
But because we've seen them before, post time skip, so I don't think he's hiding anything.
I guess I just wonder, like, where would they be at this point? Because if Vivi escaped with Morgan,
I mean, this flashback. I say this flashback's going to take at least one more chapter. I think it will probably go longer, because
I would say
we have the hell is only about to break loose, right? We have all of these little fuses that are still going, and we know at the center of this powder keg is somehow Eam, and we don't even know where all the fuses are leading yet, but they're eventually going to set that powder keg off. And whatever happens, we know Cobra dies. We know Sabo gets away with some very dangerous information, but is separated from the rest of the revolutionaries. We know the revolutionaries get Kuma. We know that Jewelry Bonney somehow ends up en route to Egghead. And on top of all that, we know Cobra is dead, and Vivi goes on the run with Wapol of all people.
Yeah.
And they end up with Big News Morgans. That is a lot of things that we need to somehow tie together, and that's either going to happen now or
a lot
not.
of it, though, a lot of it could tie off later. Like the Bonney thing can happen later. Like I feel like
there's enough time. There's enough time for Bonney to just leave and go to Egghead, and she knows where Egghead is because she's been there before. But between the revolutionaries getting Kuma and Bonney trying to get Kuma, do they interact? is there a conflict over the body of Bartholomew Kuma?
Yeah.
We got to deal with that.
I think there's going to be a moment where Kuma might tell her something that is going to happen with him that sets her off to go get Vegapunk out of revenge. I think that's what's going to happen. But I'm not saying, I don't even know if that's going to come up in this phase, because Sabo wouldn't know anything about that, and like it would be kind of like a switching of the viewpoints. My prediction is that, because this is a setup chapter, I think the next chapter will be like more setup and escalation, and then we'll get one more chapter. It feels like this is the pattern we've been on so far. The next chapter, we'll see the culmination of what Oda wants to tell about what's going on here, and then it's going to end with a transition in the same way last week's chapter transitioned into the Sabo stuff. And then we're going to transition into, what I would like is go to the Bonney thing. And then we would sort of get the explanation of that from her perspective with Kuma, wrap that stuff off, and then that transitions us more fully into Egghead, so we can just do the Egghead stuff. Because I think the way it's worked out so far is, I feel like Oda's been pretty like consistent about that. He's been like, okay, we did the Shanks thing, we did Law and Blackbeard, we did Shanks and Kid, we did Kuzan and Garp. All those laying out, and then I'm pretty sure almost all those chapters ended with some kind of transition. So that's my expectation. And after that, we kind of need to get back to Egghead and kind of,
we are now officially the farthest away from the Straw Hats that we have been in a long time. So,
and I think that's only going to stretch.
And I think we're not done. Though again, there are many reveals that can be tied to the Void Century, to Eam, to the Celestial Dragons, and at the center of all of those things is one letter. At the center of all of it is the D. So that isn't to say we won't see a Straw Hat at least be referenced.
Hey, there you go. So, do you think any of the other Straw Hats are part of the D clan but don't know it? That's a long running fan speculation thing, isn't it?
What I will say on that is Oda does seem to have an answer to who Nami's birth parents are.
I was about to say, because Nami, we don't have the last name.
Apparently that's what film, not Gold Strong World, I think, was going to be about originally. One of the One Piece films was going to be about this. So I know that it's a thing that Oda has thought about. That is all I have to offer to that theory.
Yeah, it is always interesting that the characters who have full names and then get full names later. So Nico, Robin, Rornor, Zoro. Jesus. I think Brook did we get a full name for Brook at some point? I think we did. Cyborg Frankie, though. Like Frankie, we don't have a full name. Usopp, we don't have a full name.
We do. It's Cuddy Flam.
Oh, yes. You're right. Sorry.
But Usopp, we don't.
Usopp, we don't. Nami, we don't. And yeah, those are the kind of smoking guns, because we did get eventually Vinsmoke Sanji. So you never know.
I would
scream, Usopp?
Go D Usopp.
Go D Usopp.
yeah, exactly. He's already a D. What are you talking about?
Perfect.
All right, I'm excited for the next chapter.
Yeah, no break next week. Chapter 1084 is our next. And yeah, I hope we get answers to at least some of these questions, but we probably won't. Should we end with an anime check-in?
Here's your anime check-in. I saw Knights of the Zodiac. It was terrible.
Well, I was going to talk about the One Piece anime, but sorry to hear
with
that.
The anime check-in. One Piece anime check-in. Yeah, sure, let's do it.
I don't know what episode you're on at this point. I'm officially caught up. I think I mentioned last week, but yeah, most recent episode with what's his face, Sanji, that's his name, kind of broke the internet. I think 220 million people watched that episode, and it was like one of the most watched things in the world recently. And people are speculating that the Zoro versus King and Luffy going Gear 5th are also going to break some records here. But One Piece is just like, yeah, I think it's soaring, and it's already pretty high popularity. And I gotta say, so far, Zoro versus King and Sanji versus Queen has been way more satisfying through the anime than it was through the manga. That was one of the things I really was hoping the anime was going to hit pretty well, because the manga, it was rushed, right? Like it was sort of like 1 or 2 chapters kind of wrapped up the Sanji thing. And he does finish the fight with Queen here, and it just hit way better. It made more sense. The logistics of it kind of worked better. And seeing Ifrit Janbei was just brilliant. The blue flames, all of it. Have you seen it yet?
I haven't, actually.
I think you're going to enjoy it when you get to it. And I'm expecting the same thing for Zoro and King. Like, I'm feeling the tension in the Zoro King fight that I did not in the manga. Felt like in the manga, it was just sort of like, he's struggling, but he's not. They're making it feel just more dire. Like, I'm really starting to see why Zoro gets to the point where like the Grim Reaper is standing over him, which I can't wait to see animated. But yeah, if you're also following along with the anime, or if you took a break, like I always take breaks with the anime. Like I'm not faithful to it.
That's what I do, is I watch them in chunks. So that would be why I have not seen it yet. But I'm glad to hear that the budget is still high.
The most recent episode was a recap episode, unfortunately, and a really dumb one. It was a recap episode of an episode that happened a couple episodes ago. It's just sort of like Chopper being like, here's what happened with Zoro versus King. Remember? And everyone in the comments is like, yeah, I watched that episode already.
That's why it's still hard to watch the One Piece anime, unfortunately.
It is. Yeah. So that's a very skippable episode there. But yeah. Otherwise, we're eating good with anime these days across the board. I'm a little behind. I'm behind on Hell's Paradise, and still haven't checked out Heavenly Delusion. I've been staying up to date with Yamada-kun, My Love Story, Skip and Loafer, and Galaxy Next Door. Those are the 3 that I've been like really like caught up on week to week. Mashal, I have like 2 episodes behind, that kind of thing. So, but do you have an anime of the season yet? You've been kind of like wavering a little bit, but I just want to check in.
I can't commit to nothing. Are you kidding? It's still as stacked as it was. I didn't read I didn't read Hell's Paradise, for example, and as I'm sure people have caught on to. I'm a big themes guy. So this idea that Hell's Paradise is this big, massive, like study in duality and gender, and also has a flaming ninja in it, is just shocking to me. I had no intent. I had no understanding of it going in. Didn't read anything ahead of time, and I'm blown away by it. And then that's great. And normally I would just be obsessed with that. But then you have Heavenly Delusion doing things like that at the same time. It's just there's so much compelling stuff right now this season, and we have not even scratched the surface. I mean, summer's coming, and summer is supposed to be bringing Jujutsu Kaisen. At least, which will a lot of people will be wanting to talk about as a manga reader. I mean, this is going to be one of the, and it's weird because it feels like I've been saying this for a few years now, but it really feels like this is going to be one of the best years for anime.
Yeah, just like, it's been cascading like that, hasn't it? We're just getting more and more. I think it's going to be kind of interesting with in America, we're having the writer's strike right now. And we're going to hit a point where the effects of the writer's strike are going to be felt. I think a lot of like American Western TV shows are going to, and movies are going to be really bad, because they're going to be based on like drafts and not have writers polishing things. And, we went through this in 2007. And I think that is only a good thing for anime, in the sense that I think a lot more people, like more and more people, are going to flock to anime. And it could create a bit of a bubble, in fact, because certainly the working conditions for mangaka and anime writers and illustrators, like, they're kind of dealing with some stuff. And so I do wonder if there's like a bottleneck coming soon, because so much stuff is coming out, and a lot of it is on like 1 or 2 streaming services, and it's kind of the same problem that the WGA is dealing with. So I don't want to be a doomer. I don't want people to be upset. To be aware of.
I wholeheartedly agree, and I've brought it up many times. I think MAPPA does exceptional work, and I also it's a long running joke in the community that MAPPA works its people half to death, and I would like to see that end, even if that means we don't get as much anime. or even as good of anime. I would take worse anime and better taken care of animators and scenario writers and the works. And I hope that they do. If it comes down to it, I hope that they do organize like WGA. I'm in full support of that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll be back next week to talk 1083. In case you didn't hear at the beginning, join our Discord, email us if you want, and come hang out with us and let us know what you think of this chapter and more. I'm looking forward to 1084. Had to end with a rhyme, because I started with a rhyme.
You did. You're a regular hip hop artist.